Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So today let's talk a little bit more about the Embla trials, and I know I haven't talked about this because I personally haven't been doing exceptionally well with this particular content. This seems like a lot harder than the Yunchuan trials. So I'm currently just averaging at around 3 million, and it's a little bit difficult for me to push beyond that because at this point onwards, Embla just starts to one-shot my team for free. She just needs to one-tap all of my Espers and that's about it. So I have a lot of problem trying to push past the current 3 million mark, and I know there are a bunch of people who are able to push past this. Maybe they use different Espers, maybe they use Sally, maybe they use Everett as well, just to minimize the damage that their team receives, which I think is an excellent strategy as well. It's not something that I have really pushed that much. So truth be told, I haven't really put a lot of focus into this content as well. It's just something like, okay, I get my EX++, grab and go, get all the resources, get a Shimmer record, and I'm basically done, right? So let's take a look at what team I'm using and what is the damage spread over here. So I'm using Gabrielle, I'm using Abigail, I'm using Catherine, Ahmed, and Chloe. Now this particular lineup only fits the current theme of the boss fight. So every couple of days, the boss is going to change, right? The boss is going to rotate, her effects are going to be a little bit different, but for the current one, whenever one of her seeds get removed or it explodes or something like that, that is going to increase the cooldown of the Esper that had the debuff in the first place. So it is going to be a problem, but we still need one Esper that can effectively remove it. So some of you guys might want to use Jinyu Yao, some of you guys might want to use Clara, maybe even Alexa, but me personally, I think Catherine is a little bit better in this regard, and the DPS of my choice would be Chloe. I know a bunch of you guys would be using Gaius as well because Gaius is type advantageous and he has a lot of nuking power, which is true, but the one advantage that Chloe has over Gaius, and that's not to say that you cannot use both together, but the one advantage that Chloe has over Gaius is that she's able to extend the buffs on herself, which makes her a little bit tanky as well. So she can extend the immunity buff, she can extend the defense buff. So those are really great options. And of course, the only reason why I'm not using another Gaius here is number one. Okay, actually there's a couple of reasons. Number one, I do not have a lot of space left because I need a lot of buffs. I need Gabrielle and Abigail, and I also need a cleanser, and I also need a healer as well. So actually these two can probably be combined into Clara, but I feel like separating them is a little bit better as well. And of course, number two, I feel like for this content, it's more about how well you can survive past a certain score, rather than just to get to that score as fast as possible, which is what having multiple DPSs will get you. It will get you the score sooner, but it's not necessarily going to help you with your sustenance. It's not going to help you with pushing past a certain mark, for example. Okay, so with the introduction out of the way, let's take a look at the Espers that I'm using, right? So Gabrielle, here are her stats, and she's currently built a little bit more offensively, as you can see. So she's probably not the best with this build. She's probably better off running something a little bit more tanky, right? So maybe up to 50k HP, the rest goes into speed. I think that's good enough. But for me, because I'm using her in Fafnir for a little bit faster run times, I am going to be using her with the offensive kit over here. But yeah, just so you know, going defensive is probably better. And next we have Abigail, and she is definitely tanky, so this is going to be the more appropriate build for your supports. Decent speed, whatever that is required, and the rest just goes into HP, right? That's about it. And Catherine, she's also not as tanky as I would like, but the reason why she's with this stat is because I'm just hyper focusing on whatever that's required for Dislyte lens, so I didn't really invest too much into her HP, but ideally, you might want to have a lot more HP as well, right? So maybe 50k is a good place to be. And then we have Ahmed, and I know some of you guys are going to say that, but Ahmed is wind type, and same goes for Gabriel as well. Ahmed is wind type, right? But that's not going to be a problem because his HP is really, really massive, and that is definitely going to deter Embla's attack. So Ahmed is definitely going to survive very well. So just a lot of HP, speed, and that's about it. And then finally, we have Chloe over here. So I've never touched her relics for a longest period of time. I have her on the Ocean Wave set, primarily for Dislyte land purposes. So as you can see, just decent speed, good crit rate, good crit damage, and some attack power, and that's about it. So this is more than enough for her to function. Now, of course, the reason why I use Catherine instead of Jinyu Yao or instead of Clara is because of her passive. Whenever she removes the debuffs, she actually pushes the AP of your team as well. Because on one hand, when you're removing Embla's debuffs, she's actually going to gain 30% AP. So at the same time, you want to mitigate that 30% AP gain by having your own AP gain as well. So that's why I feel like this is actually quite effective. Not only are you removing the debuff, you are also giving your allies AP as well. So it kind of mitigates that in some sense. And of course, very importantly, she also carries a miss rate up on her first skill, which you might need a little bit of accuracy for as well. Granted, I do not have a lot of accuracy on her right now. But hey, she double hits, right? So the chance of you landing the debuff is actually pretty good. So let's take a look at this run, and I think I'm just going to speed it up because it's going to take forever. It's going to take like 10 minutes. So I'm just going to explain the general rule of thumb for this particular content. So as you can see, right, for this particular wave, this particular challenge, whenever one of the debuffs on your team gets removed, the Esper with that debuff is going to have their cooldown increased by 1. So that is a problem, especially if the debuff falls onto your characters like Gabrielle, for example. You need her buffs to drop as often as she can. So ideally you need Espers with a lot of immunity, and that's where Gabrielle also comes in because she has 3 turns immunity as long as you have her at R6, which I hope most of you guys do. And yeah, that's about it. So it's all about buffing, a lot of buffs, and your Chloe is just going to extend the buffs on herself, which is great. So she's going to be surrounded with defense buffs, and that is definitely going to mitigate the damage that she's going to receive and help her to survive a little bit better. And of course, Abigail is here to revive any of your dead allies and probably buff them with the attack buff, with the regeneration buff if that's necessary, with the shield as well, and more defense buff. So the thing is, what you must understand about Embla is that knowing exactly her strengths and weaknesses is very important, which is part of the reason why I've done a lot of tests revolving Embla. So some of her issues, some of the ways that she deals a lot of damage is by removing your defense, or rather landing defense breaks, right? Or landing seer debuffs on you, but she does not have that. But the thing is, she can defense break you. In the same vein, you can definitely mitigate the nuking power that her debuff has by having defense buffs on yourself, because not only does defense breaks increase the damage of her debuff, defense buffs would also reduce the damage of her debuffs. So that's one way that you can mitigate it. So you need Espers that can throw a lot of defense buffs. So one of those Espers is going to be Bardon if you do not have, like, let's say, Abigail. If you don't have Abigail, Bardon is still pretty decent because he has the highest defensive buff uptime duration as opposed to all the other Espers. He has a 2-turn defense buff with a 3 turns cooldown, something like that, right? That's on his 3rd skill. So I think Bardon is not bad for this particular fight. But of course, if you have Abigail, I think Abigail still shines a little bit more because she can revive and she carries a lot of other buffs, which is really good for Chloe, right? So as you can see, Chloe is still fully buffed, right? She still has her immunity, she still has a defense buff, and she would probably never lose it unless somehow she gets stripped by the Embla, which I think is on her 2nd skill, right? I think, yeah, steals 1 buff, right? The second hit detonates the enemy's corrupted seed. But the good thing about Chloe is, as you can see here, right, there is the buff blocker over here, which is applied by Chloe's 2nd skill. So Chloe is a perfect pick for this particular fight, for this particular boss fight. I wouldn't think that Gaius is that great, because all he really does is he strips, he lands Seer, which, like I said before, dealing more damage isn't necessarily going to get you more score. It's just going to get you to that current score limit faster. That's about it. So I wouldn't say that Seer debuff is really that great, but yeah, he does have buff block, which is pretty good. So Gaius is probably, in my opinion, just 1 step below Chloe in this particular content. I feel like 1 DPS is good enough. And of course, I've tried other Espers like Everett, I've tried Sally as well. Those are really good because those give you the tankiness that you need to push to the further tier that you possibly can reach. So for example, if let's say your HP is like 50k, right? And if the boss reaches a point where one shot the boss can do 50k, you're obviously going to lose at that point. But with Espers like Everett and Sally, that's going to fully mitigate maybe like 50% of the damage that you're going to receive, right? So it's like 26% plus 25%, or is it 20%? I can't remember what Everett was. So 26 plus whatever, so it's about 50%. You're going to be mitigating all of that damage in addition to whatever stats that you already have. So whatever stats that Embla has at a certain tier would not be enough to one-shot you. So that's how you can climb further. I think that's how you can potentially climb further with Sally's, with Everett's, for example. But I do not have the room for Everett's and Sally's unless I remove my Chloe, which I think I might want to try just to explore a little bit, just to see whether is running an Everett going to be better than Chloe. Because like I said, right, running tanky is probably going to be able to push you past a certain tier a little bit better. And of course, there are some other ways that you can beat this content. You can try using poisons, and someone actually tested this, and the boss has an inbuilt 200k HP, which means that your poisons are only going to do like what, 8,000 per tick, right? But the thing is, the boss gains a lot of resistances along the way. Like as her stats continue to grow, so does her resistances as well. So it becomes a little bit more difficult for you to land certain debuffs. As you can see, she's starting to resist a lot, right? She's resisting a lot of our stuff right now. A lot of resistances. So there you go. So that's what the fight looks like. And obviously, as we progress towards 3 million, her damage becomes a bit too much. Like she starts hitting it for like 26k crits, which will effectively like double tap most of my Espers if I do not have my healing up in time. So yeah, that's about it. I will just let this speed up a little bit so that you guys can see the run. I mean, this is probably all there is to know about this fight. But yeah, let me know if you have any other team comp suggestions down in the comment section below. I'm very curious to know how people are doing like 4 million scores or even I'm not sure, was it 7 million? I haven't actually checked the leaderboard thus far, but I'm pretty sure I saw someone with like 7 million. I might be dreaming or something like that. But yeah, how are you guys achieving higher scores? Because I frankly can't, and I'm not sure why. I have the espers that I need at my disposal, but it just doesn't seem to work. So that's it for this video that you guys seem to request a lot about. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed today's content, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now that said, this has been Diary Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Wait, what? We actually got a better score. Let's take a look at our rank right now. I'm rank number 5. Okay, that's not bad. But in terms of like the world, oh my god, 9 million. What the heck? There is no way. There is no way at all.